Gamers, what's good? Yeah, it's been almost a week that I haven't dropped. Look, it is what it is. Just wasn't really sure what to talk about. We're just kind of waiting for the new stuff to drop in Master Duel. But I have been testing this new Horus engine that's coming on stream, and I've been really enjoying it. So I kind of wanted to make a video about it because I'm getting really excited for these Horus cards. So we have a lot of new stuff for the Horus archetype, and if you're familiar with the TCG, then you're probably familiar with this engine. And this is an engine that's going to be useful in a lot of decks. By the way, I didn't mention this, but yeah, this did get leaked pretty recently, so it's almost definitely going to be in the upcoming set coming out in the game, that along with SP Little Knight. But basically, I just wanted to introduce you to the engine for the people that watch my channel that don't really keep up with the TCG very much, like myself. There's a lot to talk about here. So first thing you're going to want to know is Horus, the Black Flame Deity. It's not good. So you don't really want to run it. The engine really is more focused on spamming level 8s to make rank 8 plays or potentially some synchro plays. There's a lot of different decks that can make use of this engine. So I'd just like to introduce you to that very quickly here. So the first thing you really want to mention here is the King Sarcophagus. The whole engine kind of revolves around this specific card, and it kind of sets up all your plays. So while King Sarcophagus is on the field, you can special summon once per turn all these Horus names from your graveyard. The crazy thing is King Sarcophagus up to 4 times per turn can discard a card from your hand and send any of these dudes to the graveyard. So that means actually if you wanted to discard that many cards, you could technically discard 4 times, send all 4 names to the grave, and special summon all 4 from your graveyard while you control King Sarcophagus. This card, you technically have 7 to 8 or I guess 9 copies if you want to run many of the field spell, although I don't recommend that. You have a lot of ways to get to it because Imseti, which is your best Horus monster, which you'll pretty much always be running at 3, will discard itself and another card in your hand to search the King Sarcophagus and draw a card. So already there, you'll have 1 Horus monster in the graveyard by discarding itself, and then with the King Sarcophagus, you can activate it, discard another card, send a level 8 to the grave, special summon this guy from the graveyard and any other name that you sent with the King Sarcophagus, and you can go into a rank 8 play. This is a really great way, for example, to play around Nibiru, because you can get a very early Photon. Yes, this one, Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord. This is a Monster Negate Xyz, rank 8. So very quick, easy way to play around Nibiru. If you don't want to have to think about it for your combo, you can just do this stuff early and set up Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord, and you're good to go. Not to mention, on turn 3, just the ability to spam all these dudes back on the field is really strong to go for game really quickly. So a lot of the time, your opponent is kind of pressured to take out the King Sarcophagus as soon as possible while it's just staying up on your field. And this is pretty scary because this engine can be thrown into a lot of different decks that will have their own interruption that your opponent has to contend with. And, we don't have siding this format, so it's not like they can just side, Cosmic Cyclone or like MST to deal with the King Sarcophagus. A lot of the time in a best of 1 format, they'll just have to in-engine take out the King Sarcophagus before turn 3, before you can just start special summoning a bunch and just slam for game, right? So definitely a very scary engine. Your field spell is not as amazing. It will add the Imseti to your hand, which is pretty useful because then you can discard it and another card and get this and draw a card. The problem is your field spell forces you to shuffle a card back into the deck after you search. So you'll be like activating this, let's say on a 5-card hand, you're activating this, you're searching the Imseti, and then you're shuffling a card from your hand into the deck. So now you have 4 cards, then you go for Imseti effect to discard itself, and another card to search the King Sarcophagus, get a draw. So really, you're activating King Sarcophagus with 3 cards left in hand. So those, if you want to discard 1 so that you can make an early rank 8, you're left with 3 cards to work with. So the minus that you get from activating the field spell makes it not that amazing to me. It's not bad per se, but I definitely would say this is a card you won't really want to run more than 1 of for the extra boost and consistency. And yeah, I wouldn't run more than 1, if even 1. I'm not a huge fan of activating this field spell all in all. Now, another rank 8 that you might see used quite a bit with this engine is the Vampire Lord. Keep in mind, we lost our Chaos Ruler, and Vampire Lord is basically... Oh, I said Vampire Lord. It's the zombie vampire. My bad. This card is basically budget Chaos Ruler, right? And a lot of decks can make use of that. For example, in some type of like, Dragon Link style deck, you might see people running a Horus Engine. You could also see it in, like, there's a very good one that's a Bestial Resonator Horus, and that also can make good use of the zombie vampire, as well as just make use of these dudes as like the Imseti is a dark that's level 8, so you know you can use him and special summon a Vision Resonator. Not to mention, if you discard the Vision Resonator with the King Sarcophagus, you'll actually get to search your Crimson Gaia afterwards. So that's really good, right? Like it works really well together. There's a lot of different decks where this is going to apply really well. One thing I do want to mention though, because a lot of people are thinking about tier limit when they're looking at this engine, is keep in mind in the TCG where this engine was really popular for tier limit, they don't have Kit Kalos. So because we have Kit Kalos, I'm not 100% sure if this engine will take off as the best way to play tier. I don't know if it's as necessary, basically, because you don't really need to go into zombie vampire in current tier. I could still see people play it, don't get me wrong. I think you will see tier limit players experiment with it, but you do need to keep in mind the discard for King Sarcophagus is cost. So the King Sarcophagus will not trigger tier limits, will not trigger Dark Worlds. So anything that would trigger off of being sent to the grave by a card effect will not trigger from being discarded by King Sarcophagus. So that's kind of why I'm a bit iffy on if it's really going to be that great for tier. I could be wrong though. I stand to be corrected on this because tier limit players, they always find a way. So I wouldn't be surprised if I'm saying this stuff, but then in action, it actually is just better tier. So, you know, I'm just putting it out there. It might not be as crazy as we're expecting for tier limits. Now, while we're on the subject of decks that can make use of this engine, another deck that could make use of this pretty well is the Orcust deck. You know, this is basically a rank 8 engine, and Orcust is no stranger to rank 8s. Discarding Orcust cards is obviously really not bad because they activate in the grave anyway. So definitely Orcust, you could see maybe almost be Rogue. That might be Copium. Honestly, that might be Copium. But you could see it. I mean, I do think this engine does help Orcust significantly, more so than tier, I would say, in terms of just how much better the deck should feel after the cards come out. And another deck that I'm really interested in with this engine is Naturia. I think Naturia could be seeing a bit of a resurgence thanks to this engine. So I'm just going to show you like a sample deck list, and I'm not trying to say this is like the optimal build for it. This is something I kind of quickly threw together on stream just to test it. I also built a more cursed version where I removed all the staples and put in runic cards, and it was literally runic Naturia Horus. And for me, it was playing really well, but the thing is I was just testing, you know, like against bots. So obviously like in ladder, it's going to be a completely different experience. But this engine works really well with Naturia because, well, for one, I mean, discarding the Naturia Sacred Tree off of the King Sarcophagus is just absolutely insane. Also, the Horus Engine, it's a really, really strong engine that doesn't use your normal summon. It allows you to go into level 12 synchros. So, for example, if you can land 2 level 8 Horus monsters in the grave and a Naturia Camellia plus a Blessing, well, you're going to be looking at a Calamity Lock at the very least, which is definitely nothing to scoff at. I could definitely show you an example of this. I'd love to show you the cards in action. So, you know what? I'm going to take you to the hand tester. We're just going to fight against the bot, and I just want to show you the Horus Engine in action because I've been talking about it a lot, and I just like to show you how it works. All right, so here we are. We're just against the bot, a completely useless bot. I think this deck is filled with normal monsters. So, you know, don't worry about hand traps or anything like that. Really just want to show you what this engine can do, and we're going to use Naturia since I'm pretty familiar with Naturia. I don't know if you guys remember, but when Naturia Runic was a really good deck, I was a big fan of that deck, and I played a ton of it. So here we go. We've got the trap in hand and the King Sarcophagus, which is basically best case scenario, right? So I'm just going to show you this King Sarcophagus in action here. This card is really, really crazy. We're going to start off by going King's Sarcophagus. We're going to activate it, and we're going to discard the Naturia Sacred Tree. Now, we can dump a monster to the grave. We can dump, it doesn't really matter which one you dump here. I'm actually going to dump one of the random names because Imseti is the best draw out of this engine. Not that it's really that amazing anyway once you're in the grind game, but it is like the best one to draw, right? So we send that, we get the effect of our Sacred Tree, and we get to add something to our hand here. I'm going to add a Naturia Blessing. And basically, if you have Camellia and Blessing plus like your King Sarcophagus setup, you pretty much will get a Calamity Lock, because here I can like normal summon Camellia, for example. We can send the trap to the grave. Again, if you guys don't remember, trap is not once per turn, so when that trap is sent to the grave, we get to add another card. Here I would add the Mole Cricket. So we add the Mole Cricket. This is just a card that can summon itself on opponent's turn when they summon something from the extra deck, so it can give you access to some extra interruption, like 2 monster negates or something like that. At this point, what we could do is just go for King Sarcophagus and discard the Mole Cricket that we just searched. You know, so that was basically the point of what I was doing here. I was using my Camellia to get another card in my hand that I can discard, because I'd much rather keep the Ash and the Imperm in my hand, obviously. At this point, we can just dump another of our Horus monsters, and that's about it. That's about it. We can go Duamutef, summon, special from grave because we control King Sarcophagus, and with these two, we can make ourselves a, let's just say, like a super heavy samurai Masurawa in defense position. Very cool. So now if they activate a monster effect, we get 3 draws, and we also get to special summon from our grave yet again, like so, and activate Naturia Blessing, bring back our Camellia to the field, and with these two, you just make a Crimson Dragon, and it's just that simple. And it gets even better. The ceiling gets even higher depending on the hand. But this, and I'm pretty sure I could have played this even crazier, but I just wanted to show you like just basic stuff that you can do with this engine. So like, yeah, we obviously played into Nibiru here. So is this perfect? Not really. You know, it's neither here nor there. But yeah, I think this engine is really, really good. I don't know if this is the best example ever, because not every deck is going to be like Crimson locking with Calamity. But I do think this is a really cool example of the engine being used in a unique way for like a random deck such as Naturia. Now, if you want to see a more like general application of the engine, we could just show you, like, I mean, it's pretty basic, but you can make like a rank 8 really early. So I'll just show you that right now. We'll just rematch and hopefully get access to the engine here. Very good. We got access to the engine. So in this case, because we have King Sarcophagus, here's what's really cool. So you're going to have this risk that you're going to be taking when you activate Imseti, right? Obviously, we're playing against the bot here, but keep in mind, this guy discards 2 to search and then gets a draw. But if you get ashed, you're losing 2. The discard is cost. So when we activate it, we have to discard. Here, you would definitely want to discard the protection of the Horus. And let's just say that we got ashed with a hand like this. We could still just go King Sarcophagus and special summon these 2 guys, you know, set up a monster negate, and, you know, just call it a day there. We'd have Max C, Ash, and like a good XCs, right? It wouldn't be the best. You could also, and what I would probably do in this scenario, actually, and I would go for a zombie vampire and attempt to maybe mill a Camellia or a Mole Cricket, or in other decks, this could be different other monsters, you know? So just getting your plays going in a graveyard-reliant deck with the zombie vampire is going to be a really popular option when you're kind of like on a weird kind of bricked up situation with the Horus engine. It opens up your plays a lot, so I think that's a really cool thing about the engine. But anyway, obviously we're not getting ashed here, so nothing to activate at this point. We're just going to get to Surge, and then we get a draw. So at this point, okay, drew into Nibiru. Very, very cool. So at this point, I would definitely just activate King Sarcophagus. And again, I'm just going to go straight for Zombie Vampire here. Or I guess we could discard 2 cards, and what we could do is set up our Monster Negate first, just so we play around Nibiru. That might be a little bit smarter. Actually, let's do that. So we'll special summon 2 level 8s from the grave. There we go. So special summon this, special summon that. Very good. With these 2, we can go into our Photon Lord. Where is he? There he is. Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord. And I'll just put him in defense position, you know, to not get lightning stormed. He's got more defense anyway. And at this point now, I feel pretty safe to go King Sarcophagus. And I'll discard my King Sarcophagus that's in hand. Dump one of the names I did not summon yet. They're all hard ones per turn on the summon, so keep that in mind. And we'll go King Sarcophagus yet again. Discard the Nibiru. And dump the other name that we did not summon yet. And at this point, you know, all our cards are pretty much on the table. If we get unlucky with Vampire Lord, that's about as good as it's going to get for us. So we got to kind of pray here. We still have a normal summoned, however, which is really, really nice. And this summon is where they could activate Nibiru. So if they had Nibiru plus Imperm here, they would win. So, you know, it is what it is. At this point, no, I don't want to activate anything. We're going to go for Zombie Vampire Effect, detaching whichever of these, does not really matter. We'll get to mill 4 from both players' deck and special summon something from the graves. And wouldn't you know it, we milled a Camellia, which means now our plays get opened up. Thanks to the engine here, we get to go Camellia. And it's not going to be the craziest thing ever, but we are going to get to at least play a little bit here. So let me see how I want to go about this. So at this point in the video, I forget that I still had my normal summon, and so I try to graveyard set up the Mole Cricket when I could have had Naturia Beast this turn. So yeah, guys, the engine's even crazier than I thought, right? Yeah, just watch me fail, I guess. This is not like the most ideal scenario, but you know, at least it gave me a chance to show you the more basic ways that this engine might be used in different decks, which is like to have a play around Nibiru and then to go into like a zombie vampire and kind of get your plays going from the graveyard. Obviously, it's a gamble. And this card is also the reason that you might still see this engine be played in tier limits, just because that ability to mill 4 can really help if like tier limit got really unlucky on their mills. They can go for one last mill with the zombie vampire and try to finally get some tier names in the grave and get their plays going from there. So you could definitely still see Horus because of this card played in tier limits. I do want to mention that. I think that's about it though for just like doing some gameplay showcase stuff. I just kind of wanted to introduce you a little bit to the Horus engine. I hope this video was somewhat useful to the people that aren't familiar with it. I wasn't familiar with it until I started testing it a couple days ago, and I think it's pretty straightforward and really just a ton of fun to play with. So yeah, I really appreciate you guys for checking out the video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I appreciate all of you, and that's it from me. So, peace.